I suppose we'll need my brother back.
Oh, yeah, right.
I have been falling for 30 minutes!
Surprise! I am Loki of Asgard, and I am burdened with glorious purpose.
I am a god, you dull creature, and I will not be bullied by an
Puny god.
You picked up the Tesseract, breaking reality. I want you to help us fix it. I need your unique Loki perspective.
Brother, calm down. You better be ready. Glorious. I suppose Loki picking up the Tesseract in Endgame might have caused some concern. It is very exciting. The world of the TVA is a world of bureaucratic order, and of course Loki is the god of mischief and chaos. So you have the forces of order and chaos coming together, and that's where our story starts.
Welcome back, everyone. This is going to be my new Marvel Loki trailer video and Thor video explaining how the Loki series connects to Thor Love and Thunder and what's happening with Thor during the events of the Loki series. So if you're brand new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to get all the videos. I will be doing videos for all the episodes. It's going to start next week. You don't have to wait that long. We're doing a Disney Plus giveaway for memberships. All you have to do to enter is be a subscriber and let me know what you want them to do with Loki in the Marvel movies after the Loki series. We will be getting a Loki Season 2 eventually, so he will be going back and forth between the Loki episodes in the future Marvel movies. Like, they're never going to completely get rid of Loki. But Marvel released a bunch more footage recently of him with Chris Hemsworth and Thor in all the movies. Tom Hiddleston has been talking about the Thor movies and the future of his character. So obviously the Loki series is a time travel series. He'll be jumping all over the timeline, past, present, and future, and also through the multiverse and alternate realities. So just to explain the Marvel timeline during the events of the Loki series, it works like this. The opening scenes of Loki Episode 1, you've actually seen in the trailers, is basically starting right after this moment in Avengers Endgame when this version of Loki steals the Tesseract in the year 2012. It's meant to be right at the end of the first Avengers movie. Then as he's portaling away with the Tesseract, he winds up in the Gobi Desert here, somewhere near Mongolia it looks like, just based on these people. That's why they have him wearing that same costume. It's a very Iron Man 1 inspired scene of him waking up in the sand. Like, what just happened here? Like after Iron Man in the Mark 1 lands in the sand and just sits up, like, what just happened? A lot of the Loki series will be parodying moments from earlier Marvel movies, so it'll be really fun to spot those Easter eggs. But that's when this character, who's called Hunter B-15, comes to arrest him and book him in the Time Variance Authority's time prison. You see her hauling him in, he's all pissed off because she kicks his ass, and he has no idea what's going on at this point. This place they take him, the Timekeeper Citadel, the official name is the Citadel at the End of Time, but I think it's just easier to refer to it as the Timekeeper Citadel. It exists in its own pocket dimension outside of normal space-time, protected from any potential changes in the normal MCU timeline, which, as they said, they monitor and police to keep the past, present, and future unfolding according to the Timekeeper's plans. I've already talked about how sinister that sounds. We'll be talking about that during the Loki episodes, like who is the real villain here. The Timekeepers are kind of coming off like they're antagonists during the series, telling everybody the way their future is supposed to unfold and arresting them or deleting them if they don't agree with it. But anytime someone alters the timeline in a way that they don't like or creates branch timelines, alternate realities, that's when they arrest people. I know there's a lot of questions about why the Avengers didn't get arrested after Avengers Endgame. Why didn't they try to arrest Thanos with the Infinity Gauntlet if he was erasing half of all life? That's mostly because they didn't create branch timelines, and I know also sort of adding to the idea that the Timekeepers are kind of cynical, kind of antagonistic, and if they allowed something to happen, it's because they wanted it to happen, implying that they wanted Thanos to snap half of the universe. So of course the Timekeepers sound kind of villainous. But while Loki is inside this space, for all intents and purposes, the passage of time for the main characters like Thor, the other Avengers, and the main MCU timeline after Avengers Endgame is essentially meaningless. Yes, time still moves forward in the main timeline for all of them, But during the Loki episodes, what this version of Loki is essentially doing is jumping around from one alternate reality branch timeline to another in the past, present, and future of those alternate realities. And he can enter the main MCU timeline at any point that the TVA wants. He can pop in during the events of the older Thor movies like Thor: The Dark World. He can show up on Earth earlier in the timeline, like it seems like he's in a version of Pompeii here as the volcano is in the middle of exploding. But I know everyone's just wondering what Thor is doing in present day while Loki is off having these adventures with the TVA. So I think this is easier to follow if you chart the timeline based on the way that this version of Loki is experiencing the passage of time. Like every day that he works for the TVA here, he still gets one day older. He ages one day. His timeline moves forward one day. But for example, in this scene, when he's having this conversation with Mobius just a couple moments after they arrest him, agreeing to his terms, pretending like he's never going to do anything bad ever again in his life, of course we believe him because he never tells lies. The year is still 2012 technically, because this is still a couple moments in this Loki's timeline after the end of the first Avengers movie, because they just left from the year 2012. Like, Loki has only aged a day when this is happening. Thor also aged a day, but they just came from the year 2012. So for Thor, it's still 2012 when this is happening. So when this version of Loki in the TVA eventually does meet the current version of Thor in present day of the MCU, which obviously after Endgame is 2023, I believe Thor: Love and Thunder is supposed to pick up in a linear fashion after the other Marvel movies, so maybe it takes place during 2024. But it'll be this version of Loki from the TVA who's a little bit older, just dipping back into the timeline at this point in the timeline for the regular version of Thor. He's 10 years older, but this version of Loki won't be 10 years older. He'll be meeting Thor just a little while after this. Like, Thor will have remembered watching Loki die. Like, wait a minute, I watched you die again. Loki tends to do that quite a bit in the MCU. But this Loki never experienced that, so he won't have the same relationship with Thor that the original Loki had from Infinity War. But the whole idea is, though, that over the course of the Loki series, he's on a similar redemption arc and will eventually become a more considerate character, more thoughtful about his actions, slightly less selfish and jealous. Just slightly. So when he does dip back into the timeline and cross over with Thor in present day of the MCU, he have a totally different dynamic with Thor. Kind of blow his mind a little with the revelation of the Time Variance Authority existing, a force of time cops across the multiverse. Can't wait to see Thor react to that. But as for this version of Loki jumping around in the timeline during these episodes, encountering versions of Thor in other parts of the timeline, and the other characters from the Thor movies like Heimdall, Odin, his mother Frigga, the Warriors 3, for example, you actually look at this D.B. Cooper scene in all the trailers, he's getting ready to jump out the back of the plane, you can hear him say, "Brother, Heimdall, I hope you're ready," just as the Bifrost catches him in midair so they can make that big D.B. Cooper reference of him disappearing without a trace, quote unquote. Like, this version of Loki in this timeline becomes the inspiration for the D.B. Cooper legend. It'll let you know that, one, this is happening in the 1970s, just charting the timeline, because that's when D.B. Cooper's real-life heist happened that they're basing this on. Two, that Thor and Heimdall were very much active and alive in Asgard 40, 50 years ago. To them, 50 years is like 6 months for a regular human. So yes, there is a version of Thor in Asgard when this scene is happening who's monitoring Loki's actions right here with Heimdall, and Heimdall is operating the Bifrost like he always did before Asgard was destroyed. So yes, this is a good example of how Thor is very much a part of the series, but the way Tom Hiddleston and Kevin Feige, the other producers, talk about the Loki series is they wanted to separate the notion of the Loki character from what they call the Thor Odinson saga. Like, you have the Infinity Saga of movies, there's the Thor Odinson saga within the MCU, which is basically what they're calling the Thor movies. Like, one of their proofs of concept they talked about for the series that they started with was, what is Loki's story when he's not with Thor all the time? Like, what is Loki's story if it's not told from Thor's perspective? So the Loki series is sort of the answer to that. Like, what's happening when Thor isn't around all the time, stealing Loki's thunder to make all the Thor puns. So that's why I'm not expecting a ton of Chris Hemsworth showing up all over the place, except when they're referencing him in scenes like this. Like, they'll reference a lot of Thor stuff, but Thor himself won't be flying around all over the place. So just do not be surprised if you don't see Chris Hemsworth all over the episodes. It's a lot like the other Avengers during WandaVision and Falcon and Winter Soldier, same exact situation with the way they handle the other Avengers actors. Like in this scene that we see in all the trailers, Loki is in the Avengers Tower. They're clearly parodying this iconic Avengers moment, but they'll probably have some clever way of working around the fact that Robert Downey Jr. did not come back to film new Iron Man scenes for the Loki episodes. So even though they're referencing this iconic meeting between those characters, it'll look very different during the actual episode. The funny thing too is Tom Hiddleston was talking about this classic Avengers Endgame scene that they sort of redid for Endgame for this ending of the first Avengers movie. Tom Hiddleston said that all this footage here of them coming for Loki and him asking for the drink, they actually reshot all this as if it were a totally new scene. None of this is reused footage. All the actors got back into their old costumes to refilm this stuff. So talking a little bit more about Thor Love and Thunder and connecting the Loki episodes to that, Taika Waititi did a live stream earlier this year before they started filming. He was answering fans' questions, like people asked, will Silver Surfer be in Thor Love and Thunder? In flat out no hesitation, he's like, no way mates, not going to be doing any of that, no Silver Surfer in this movie. But when people asked him about Tom Hiddleston coming back as a different version of Loki, so as to not undermine his sacrifice in Avengers Infinity War, he got real quiet for a second, paused, and then essentially said, I can neither confirm nor deny Tom Hiddleston will be in this movie, which obviously is exactly what you would say if he's in the movie, and it's going to be super twisty with the way they explained him showing up. He also said that it would be pretty weird of them to make a Thor movie without Loki, but I think sort of complicating things is that when he was doing this live stream, he also couldn't spoil what they were doing with the character in the Loki series, so that's why you've seen so much secrecy around what's happening with Tom Hiddleston during Thor Love and Thunder. It's too bad Tom Holland and Mark Ruffalo don't seem like they're in Thor Love and Thunder, otherwise we'd know every single thing about that movie. But just a big reminder, that's all going to start next week. Loki episodes will be posting on Wednesdays, so that's when my videos will be posting. If you have any special requests for bonus videos before then or any big questions, just leave them in the comments below. Everyone seems to think that there's going to be a big Spider-Man No Way Home trailer sometime in the next week or so. If that does wind up happening, they post it, of course I'll do videos for it. Make sure you have alerts enabled for my channel so you don't miss anything. I'll name a new giveaway winner when I post my next Marvel video. Everyone click here for my new Spider-Man No Way Home big announcement that they just made about the future of the Spider-Man character. It's pretty huge. And click here for my new Thor Love and Thunder first look videos and teasers from the set. Thank you so much for watching. Everyone stay safe, and I'll see you guys tonight.